Nigel Farage is considering to leave the UK. Yes, the main force behind Brexit Britain is now thinking of leaving the UK. And that's because he's been made a non-person by the banking industry. He cannot open up a bank account. Sounds a bit like China or Russia. No, this is happening in the UK. We in the UK are proud to enjoy the modern day liberties such as the freedom of speech, but it does not seem to be the case if you rise to a certain level of influence. In this video, I will share 3 tips if you are risk of being debanked or ever become subject to this kind of treatment like Nigel Farage. The consequences of debanking are extreme. Your business is destroyed within months. As a business, try not paying your bills for a few months. Your staff will leave, they'll stop working, your suppliers will cut ties, your offices will close. Your business as you know it won't exist anymore. You will even struggle to pay for groceries at the supermarket. And it's not like you don't have money. You have money, but you can't use it. Banks, under the current rules, they don't even need to give you a reason. Sometimes they may have the incorrect understanding about a certain transaction that they don't agree with, or a certain person that they don't want you to deal with. If banks talk to you privately, you're at least given the opportunity to clarify and possibly provide more information about that transaction or that person. However, if you are being debanked, you don't know what is it that banks don't like about you, and opening a bank account, which is such a simple task, would become extremely challenging for you. What happened with Nigel Farage? He's certainly not the only person who has been subject to this kind of treatment. It happens to a lot of people, and this trend seems to be growing. I mean, sort of 10 years ago, this wasn't something that you would expect of, at least, not the UK government. Main high street banks will not allow you to deal with them. They simply don't want your business. And realistically, you're left with no choice but to potentially leave the country and consider overseas options. Okay, so let's talk about 3 things. I said that I'm going to sort of give you 3 tips to sort of diversify your risk. So what is it that you can do? So the 3 things that you can do is to essentially buy yourself something like an insurance policy if this ever happens to you, or if you decide to sort of speak your mind and challenge the status quo, then you must recognize that this could happen to you. And this is a tool that governments are using more and more. So back in the days, this wasn't something that the governments would consider doing, but I think looking into the future, this is just gonna be something that we would expect. Of course, it's new at the moment, but this could be one of the tools that governments are going to use to control people. Of course, most of us will never reach the level of popularity that these people have to be even considered for debanking. So it is certainly not a problem that most people face, but it's good to know what you can do if this ever becomes a concern. So the first tip is to diversify. Similar to how you are encouraged to not put all eggs in one basket, where possible, you should try to actively seek different markets for your goods and services. In other words, your business is operating in multiple regions with its own suppliers and customers. People who understand the method of corporate structuring, so talking about accountants and tax advisors, they will resonate with this idea where, sort of a holding company is placed in a group structure to diversify risk and isolate the trading and investment arms of a business. So this is very similar to something that you can adapt within your own business. Different countries have different opinions about a certain subject. So you may find that depending on who you're asking, you will get different responses. Some countries will not care about the reasons why you are being debanked, and they would allow you to use their local banks. The second tip is to consider having more than one bank account, and where possible, at least one bank account with a startup type challenger bank. Yes, of course, they may not be able to provide you with the same level of security like the well established banks. But they tend to have more features that they can offer to attract and grow their customer base. So usually in terms of soft skills, they're likely to be better than the well-established banks, but they may not be able to offer you the same level of security. So there's no need to leave all of your cash with one bank, and certainly not with one of those sort of startup banks, but you can diversify. And there are several types of challenger banks who will offer you their services, and they do provide FSCS protection in the UK, and that's up to £85,000 per bank. Depending on how much cash you have, maybe you've just sold a house and you have large sums of money in your bank. So this would certainly exceed the 85k FSCS limit. In that case, you can open up several bank accounts and don't deposit more than 85k in each bank account. So if they ever go out of business, you can get your money back through the insurance scheme. I mean, we've just only seen the banking turmoil in the US, and there was a potential that we could have had the ripple effects of that banking crisis. Thank God it didn't happen, but it can happen, and it has happened in the past. The third tip may not be may not be everyone's cup of tea, but this is where the world of banking is heading anyways in the next couple of decades. Call it CBDC, in other words, the government's version of crypto, or call it Bitcoin, which is the version of cryptocurrency that governments cannot control. The way governments around the world are just printing money and causing inflation, it also increases the divide between rich and poor. It is possible that crypto will continue to remain relevant. How relevant? We don't know. If you are at risk of becoming debanked, you're likely to face two scenarios. In first case, they will allow you to take your money out and deposit in a different bank. You're given a notice, normally 3 months, which is usually plenty of time for you to get another bank account, or even get a bank account in a different country. So, your access is temporarily limited from accessing your funds, but you can access them and you can take your money out. In the second scenario, and this is where crypto is, I believe, a good option to diversify your risk, they can just freeze your money. They will ask you a bunch of questions to waste your time, and you will not be able to access your funds. If that ever happens, it is best to have some funds in crypto so that you can at least exchange them for goods and services. You will find that some people will trade their goods and services in exchange for crypto, as long as you're paying tax, there are proper records, and you're not trying to sort of engage in a tax evasion strategy by using crypto. Crypto is not illegal. It's like if you're trying to hide away your money, then that's when it becomes complicated and potentially subject to penalties. Being debanked is very serious, and if that happens to you, one way or another, you're going to lose a significant proportion of your net worth. It's interesting to see that it's happening in a country like the UK, where we are allowed to speak our minds, but apparently this trend of canceling people is growing. Removing access to your funds is an effective way to completely destroy your life. Hopefully the public will demand alternative means to punish people. If let's say if they have actually done something wrong, instead of debanking them, you can use other legal methods to sort of treat them differently, and just simply closing their bank account may not be an effective method of controlling people. I'll continue to keep my eye on this case. I will share more updates with you as the information about Nigel Farage becomes available. Let's see what he does. How is he going to solve this problem? At the moment, he's talking a lot about this in public. to sort of get some momentum on it. And yes, I think he has been successful in getting people to talk about it. So if you want to sort of stay in touch, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.